around the middle of Shadowlands progression, we learned that there are these sigils. 5 sigils that were given to the Eternal Ones that, when combined together, are a key into the Sepulchre, which in turn is a key to the cycle of death of the universe itself. Right now, it is a big mystery. However, with some info from the latest book and a few hints here and there, we can see that medallions in Revendreth are like a mini version of the sigils. So taking that into consideration, what actually are these sigils? Why can we reforge them, and why are they just so important? If you ever wanted to record your raids, arenas, Mythic Plus, check out Squad OV. The app records itself without a click of a button. You can see complete encounter stats, spell visualizations, analyze performance, and you can also watch your friend's perspective. Best of all, you can do it from anywhere just from the web app. Use the link in the description to check out the sponsor Squad OV completely free. So a very quick recap of what we actually know. Eons ago, 6 cosmological forces were at war with each other, as is evident by both the old and the new cosmological chart. Then the first ones, the 7th cosmological force, came in and ordered them, creating various opposite cycles, with apparently the most notable one being the life and death cycle. Now it turns out that each of these forces have their own pantheons. The most notable one that we have seen and that shaped our planet are the Pantheon of Order, the Titans, that until now we believed were the creators of the universe. The second pantheon that we are familiar with is the Pantheon of Death. We've seen them, the Eternal Ones, that are the rulers of the Shadowlands. Other than that, it is likely that there are other pantheons such as the Void and the Light One, and we know for a fact that there is also a Life Pantheon and that Elune is at least one of the members. However, what is really strange is that the Winter Queen of Shadowlands, a Death entity, and Elune, a Life entity, are sisters that apparently split a long time ago. This heavily implies that the ancient forces, while in strife and chaos, were not exactly organized in a neat chart where they are on the opposite sides, and it is more than likely that they all just operated in one big cosmological pool. The latest Shadowlands book heavily implies that the first ones came in from somewhere and that they enforced order upon these forces, organizing them in a manner that we are currently familiar with. As they created these cycles so that the realms can work in sync, they also organized the realms individually to the tiniest details. For example, we know that they heavily ordered the Shadowlands and that they even created a few realms themselves, like directly, such as the Maw, Maldraxxus, and even the various cities such as Oribos and Kortia. Now, what is really interesting here is that it is heavily implied that it was the first ones that put the Eternal Ones in their place. It is almost certain that they did not create them, but it is likely that they conquered them and just forced them to serve. Very similar to Azeroth, how the old gods took over the planet, battled the native elemental lords, and ultimately just turned them into their own lieutenants. Why I believe this is the case is because Blizzard confirmed that the sigils were actually given. This here is the crucial keyword, given to them by the first ones. By the current definition, the sigils were entrusted to them long ago as a symbol of their purpose, and they're described as something similar to a soul of an Eternal One. This is the exact reason why Anduin used his Scuffed Frostmourne to take them. You either need a Runeblade or heavy domination magic in order to transfer the sigil, very similar to transferring a soul. There are 5 of them, with 4 Eternal Ones having one, and the Arbiter having the final one, which we now know originally belonged to Zovaal. It is obvious that the 5 sigils are, or were, the foundation of the Shadowlands, and that is why there are only 5 Eternal Ones, despite there being countless realms of the afterlife that we cannot see or access. So when combined, these 5 sigils work as a key, and they can teleport you into Zereth Mortis, which is known as the Forbidden Realm of the First Ones. We know Mortis in Latin means death, and Zereth apparently means keystone in First One language, so it is almost certain that this is the Death Keystone, essentially the Forbidden Realm where the life and death cycle originates. Netherite. Now, I wouldn't be surprised that there's also Zereth Light Void and for just Zereth for every other cycle in the universe. Now, to not get off track here in translations, let us step back a bit and use another mechanism of the Shadowlands to try to get a better understanding of this. Just how there are 5 sigils that combined create something big, there is almost the exact version of this in Revendreth, like a microcosm of this thing. We know that Denatrius created the various medallions that split his power, and he gave them to each minor leader of the court in order to, and this here is the keyword, just pay attention here, to ensure loyalty and obedience. Now, as we have figured out recently, when all these medallions are combined, they can forge the Sigil of Revendreth. It is likely that Denatrius knew that the first ones did this, so he thought, yeah, that's a pretty cool idea. I could do the exact same thing in my realm, so I could be like a mini first one, like a Revendreth version of first one. So what if the makers of the universe, the architects, essentially conquered death and they created these sigils in order to ensure loyalty and obedience of their subjects? We know even Zovaal had his own sigil, so he was more than likely one of the conquered. Now, the other keyword here is that sigils represent purpose that was given to them by the first ones. So my speculation is that once the first ones defeated them, they wiped out their memory and reprogrammed them to work with the newly built cycle. This is when Elune split away from her sister as their makers reorganized the realms and just sent everyone everywhere. They essentially took the key to the death cycle, split it up into 5 keys, and gave each of the Eternal Ones one with very distinct missions, so that they won't even consider rebelling because they have contradictory missions. Well, eventually Zovaal learned this and realized what is going on, and he figured if he can get his family to reunite, they can free themselves from the enforced order of the first ones. However, the others were so brainwashed at that point that they just immediately thought what he was saying was just heresy and against the purpose, and when Zovaal attacked them, they imprisoned him. The first ones, if they were still around, realized that, damn, our mechanism doesn't really work as intended, as the Arbiter is the weak link here, so let us just automate this and not put someone here with a brain that actually has critical thinking. Let's just put a computer here. Why I think Revendreth here explains this entire mechanism in place is because let's just look at how they describe the Venthyr in the book, like the most recent book. The ones that value trust and loyalty and therefore do not look kindly upon those who forsake oaths made to their beloved kin. Does that sound familiar? Could this be the exact reason why Denatrius is actually helping his brother Zovaal? Because, you know, he's constantly going around and saying how his family betrayed him. Because we did learn that he was the main guy that orchestrated the entire drought. Denatrius was just behind everything. I would even go as far as to say that medallions work like the mini sigils, because we know the Eternal Ones shape their own realms, and we know when Kel'Thuzad stole one of the medallions, he could use it potentially to reshape parts of the Shadowlands, or Revendreth in this case. So the sigils could be the exact same thing, just on a larger scale. In conclusion, to put this very simply, it really seems like the sigils are actually the foundation and the essence of the Shadowlands and the keys to the death cycle. However, they were split into 5 different ones, tied to the souls of the Eternal Ones, and all of this seems like it was done by the first ones, and not exactly in a voluntary manner either. Now, the only confusing thing here, and I gotta admit, it really is confusing, is how are we able to actually reforge them? And I don't even think Blizzard really knows what is going on at this point. We know that the Jailer has the original sigils, and he already opened the portal. However, we're reforging them so that we can also follow him, which means that apparently they can be replicated, and each realm does it in a different way. Revendreth and Bastion worked in a similar manner. Ardenweald actually needed the help of Elune, a life titan, which is even more confusing, and really this could be an entire video in itself. And Primus reforged his own. Now, in regards to why they can be recreated, I really just don't have an answer to this, so I would like to hear what you guys think about this theory. My current speculation is that either once the portal is opened, the portal to the Sepulchre, the sigils just lose their significance and can just be replicated, or the Eternal Ones are sacrificing their last reserve of power to create a second version of that, and really, once that is done, no more sigils can be made. Thank you for watching. Check out top 10 most powerful humans in the lore by clicking on the screen, and also check out Nona's Academy for videos on real world history and science. See you next time.